all right, here's what we're going to do. There's a race in early spring. I'm going to pull my book out. It's 13 weeks. I know exactly what I have to do. Kids, I'm going to follow this plan step by step and do everything exactly right. And I'm going to go win that race.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast, where we bring you interviews and topics to help you live well and swim well. Conversations especially meaningful for masters swimmers and anyone striving to perform better in the water or in life. We're here to champion you. And now your host, Kelly Pallas.
I am so excited to be doing an on-deck interview with Chet Goudy. He was a college swimmer, a pro triathlete. He's now a master swimmer, and he is officiating at a big USA meet. And Chet, thank you so much. Welcome to Champions Mojo. First, let's start with your officiating. You're a USA swimming official. And what position are you working today?
I worked as a deck ref for this entire meet.
What does a deck ref do?
The deck ref is in charge of the pool. Everything that happens and everybody that's working. The meet ref is in charge of the meet, but the deck ref is handling what's going on in the water.
So you obviously love swimming. How did you get into being an official, and what's the rewarding part of it?
Well, my kids decided to swim year round, and I grew up coaching, so I was either going to coach or do something. I wasn't going to sit in the stands. So my wife begged me not to coach again because I stopped when my first was born. And so I said, well, fine, I'll officiate. So, and they always need more officials as it is.
So how long have you been doing this?
Since Noelle started, so this is year 4 or 5. You asked what the rewarding part is. It's nice to be on deck when parents can't get on deck with the kids. So, my kids are around me all the time and they come up and talk, and other parents like to say that their kids refuse to acknowledge them, whereas mine still come up. So I'm glad.
That's cool. Okay, so let's get into your little bit of your swimming history, like where you grew up swimming, maybe your USA, and then how you got into college swimming, and then transitioned to, I'm guessing, triathlons and then masters, but it may be the other way around.
Yeah, so I grew up swimming at Spy in Severna Park, Maryland. I played lacrosse, I was in band, and I swam. When I got to 9th grade, I decided I wanted to be the drum major of the marching band. And at the time, I stopped playing lacrosse and stopped swimming. To be the drum major, you got to be the best. So you're handpicked, and it was kind of like my ultimate goal at that moment. And so I wound up being the drum major, and everything was great. However, I missed swimming, and I didn't really intend on going to college. I thought I'd just work with my dad, and my dad said, no, you're going to go. And I said, well, if I go, I'm going to swim. So senior year of high school, I called my head coach, and he said, sure, come on back. So I started out with 3 years of being dry, and I was terrible. And it took many months to get back into some kind of shape. So I continued with Spy my first year of college, going to the community college, and then transferred to Towson. And then swam the final 3 years there. And that was the greatest thing ever. And it was probably the hardest thing other than having kids.
Oh, swimming in college.
Yes.
So I've heard a legendary set that you did. You want to share that with us? Mark told me about it. So tell us about this legendary set.
Well, in college, we used to do 2200s stroke.
What stroke?
Breaststroke.
So you were a breaststroker.
Yes. I'm sure I had other kids do backstroke and fly, but, the breaststrokers did breast. And I loved it. It took like 6 or 7 or 8 to get into it. And then by 11, 12, 13, you could really roll. However, I was rolling over the kids who were in the relays because I couldn't do a 50 or 100 to save my life faster than they could. But if we did many 200s, then that's where I got to take over.
So you're a distance swimmer?
Yeah.
Did that lead you into triathlons, like swimming the mile? What was the next trajectory of your swimming career?
Well, we didn't figure out that I should do distance until my senior year in college. And then I was on the 800 free relay, and that was fun. I couldn't wait for swimming to be over. We counted down the days. And then 2 weeks after conference championships, I was like, well, what the heck do I do now? And I didn't swim for, I think, 4 or 5 years after that. And then eventually I got back in the pool, and then swimming here and there. And then I had friends doing triathlons, and I knew they were doing well, but I thought I can do that. So eventually I was doing triathlons, just a few a year, and these old friends would always beat me. And I told my wife, I know I can be better than this. I need to get a coach and get on a team. And so I did that, and it changed everything about training for me and kind of really opened my eyes to what I should have been doing. And then, we went from there.
So you're obviously a hardworking swimming official. You're a dad. You're traveling down here to this big meet. Are you swimming yourself, and how do you stay in shape yourself?
So, yes, I swim at Riva in Annapolis with ABC, the Annapolis Breakfast Club. I was going 5 days a week, and then I thought maybe it's too much. I'm thinking back to my triathlon, where I would never do anything 5 days in a row. So now I try to pickleball on the off days, early in the morning when nobody's awake anyway. So the courts are clear at the gym.
So that's great. Tell me more about the Annapolis Breakfast Club. Even though we're at a USA meet, I ran into one of your ABC master swimmers in the lobby, and she very casually said, because it's unusual to see an older person swimming in a USA meet, but she said, "Hey, great job. I'm a master swimmer too." And I said, "Oh, well, where do you swim?" She said, "Oh, it's just the ABC. We're the Annapolis Breakfast Club." And I said, "Great." She said, "Yeah, we only do 5,000. Or she said, "I can only do 5,000. And I said, "Wait, I don't even do 5,000. So tell us a little bit about this ABC. It sounds cool. And are you really doing 5,000?
So we generally do 4,000 every day. Some of us stay after if we have time, and we'll do extra sets. But in February, it's Fitness February, and so we do 5,000 every day. And that the whole point of that is to ramp up, because the majority of the thought process is to get ready for the Bay Swim, which is today, the 14th, which I was supposed to be swimming in, until my daughter said, "We're going to this meet, Dad."
Okay, so that was the 4.4 Chesapeake Bay, Annapolis, beautiful swim. I've always wanted to do that, never had. So the main thing I would love for you to share with our listeners is just getting more parents or more swimmers into officiating, into USA swimming officiating, and also US Master Swimming officiating. It's such a great way to see swimming from the deck. What would you give advice if somebody's just listening to this and they're like, they love swimming, they have no idea how to get started? What could be some of the steps, and where might they end up? On the Olympic pool deck? Do you have aspirations for that in LA in 2028? Are we going to see you there as the deck referee? But give us a little, some encouragement for people out there and how we can get more officials, because they're always needed, right?
Yes, we're always desperate for officials. Most people are afraid to officiate because they either think they don't know anything about swimming because they never swam, or B, they don't want to disqualify a kid. Well,
Love it.
by disqualifying the kid, you're not disqualifying them. They disqualified themselves. And you're bringing it to the attention of the kid and probably the parents and the coaches. So it's a benefit to everybody all the way around. And I even found, once I became an official, that there were things that I didn't really realize were a thing as a swimmer. But then once I was an official, I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that, or never would have considered that. Keep in mind, many of the things that we call are not a benefit to the kid. They're not getting an edge up on anybody by doing what they're doing. You don't have to know about swimming. You apprentice when you first get on deck. And so by that, I mean, you stand with somebody and they tell you everything that they're looking at. And so that was kind of nice. The first time I apprenticed, I remember the guy said, "Gosh, I think you know more than I do already," which was kind of funny. But it's also a good group of people. So you run into the same people that you worked with, but you haven't seen them in 6 months, but you're all still friends. So, and remember, you get to be on deck. So that's the best part.
And you get great hospitality, right?
Some places, it's really great. We get crab cakes. I've had that before. So yeah.
But at least drinks and snacks.
Oh yes, there's always plenty of food.
Okay. And what might be the worst part? Like if somebody's just like, oh, maybe the worst part isn't that bad.
For me, it's standing still. I will move bricks all day long and never stop and be fine. But if you tell me to stand perfectly still for 4 hours, that is the hardest part to me.
Okay. And you really have to stand still.
Generally, depending on the position you're doing. If you're doing stroke and turn, you may stand on the bulkhead for a 4-hour session and you'll step one step up and one step back.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a bummer. But there are some sitting positions as well, right?
There are sitting positions. And I try to stress that the more officials we have, it makes it better for every person on deck working. If you have 8 and you need 8, well, then nobody gets a break. If you have 9, now you have relief. Well, guess what? If 12 showed up, it would be amazing. And everybody's job would be infinitely easier.
Yeah. This is awesome. What was the professional triathlon career?
Yeah. So, well, it was very short. So I joined a triathlon team, PHPI, and I still have some of my best friends of my whole life from that team, even though it's not, it's no longer around. But my coach ran the team. My goal from the beginning was to get my pro card for sprint and Olympic distance. I didn't really like going long and not as hard. I'd rather go real hard for an hour or two. My coach always said, "You're really fast, but you're really fragile." So he had to be careful with me with overdoing it. But my whole intention was to get the pro card. We went to St. Pete Beach in Florida. That's a really great qualifying race there. I got third. I had to be top 3 amateur, top 3 out of to finish of the amateurs. So that was really fun because there was a pro field there and we're all together. We're passing each other on the bikes, on the run. So that was really fun. But I got my top 3 qualifying finish and I literally felt like a weight was lifted and I was like, well, I did it and now I don't know what to do.
And so that was the end of it?
That I have raced a few more times since then and I still have all of my stuff. I will never get rid of it. My kids actually asked me a couple years ago, after I had not raced for a few years, what was triathlon? And I was shocked and sad. So I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. There's a race in early spring. I'm going to pull my book out. It's 13 weeks. I know exactly what I have to do. Kids, I'm going to follow this plan step by step and do everything exactly right. And I'm going to go win that race. And sure enough, it all worked out.
Oh, how old are you now? And how old were you when you did this, when your kids asked you?
I'm 43 now. I was either 39 or 40. And the funny part was the guys who came in second and third were from the Naval Academy Triathlon Club. And I said, gosh, I could be your dad.
Wow. I love it. So, obviously you're a great swimmer, but where do you get the chops for bike and run?
I have to credit my coach, Scott Paget, for that. I started riding and would just go for rides here and there and ride hard and do whatever. But once I got the coach, Scott, I did every single thing on purpose. Just depending on duration and power and heart rate, whatever it was, I stayed inside on a trainer full time. The only time I was outside was during a race because I could control all of it perfectly.
Probably smart because injuries happen out there on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. This is awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you?
We're a swimming family. You'll like this. I have a swimming pool business. I started that right at the end of college. So my wife runs the majority of that.
Tell us about it.
So
we You're in
It's,
Maryland. If somebody's
yeah,
listening,
yeah,
what is it?
it's Goudy Pools. We're in Arnold, Maryland. We open, close, service, renovate, and we build a few pools every year. But we do a lot of renovating and open, close, and service.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. You got to come back for finals and officiate, so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Glad to talk.
Thank you for listening to the Champions Mojo podcast. Would you consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple? That's like getting a best time for us. Kelly and our team would be so grateful. See you next week for another boost of mojo.